Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I hope your day and your week are going very well so far. We've got a new day, which of course means a new NBA player prop video to share with you guys. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. With a new day comes some new opportunities to go ahead and make some money. And guys, this morning I woke up feeling absolutely dangerous. I have six NBA player props to go ahead and share with you guys in tonight's NBA slate. I don't know what it is. I woke up feeling dangerous. I woke up ready to take the world by the balls and go ahead and cash some mother effing bets. I'm feeling confident today. So guys, if you are watching today's video at this point right now, you just clicked on the video, you're watching the intro here, comment dangerous down below. So go ahead and comment dangerous down below, guys. Before we dive into today's dangerously, see what I did there? Good slate. That was awful. Before we dive into today's picks, guys, let's do a quick little recap of how we did last night. Overall, last night, guys, we went 2-2. Not so bad, but not very good either. 2-2 overall. We did hit our Jakob Poeltl bet. That actually was an easy cash. Josh Hart was a little bit of a sweat, but we did get the cash on that prop. Unfortunately, though, Bam Adebayo and Jordan Poole both failed to cash on their overs. Both of them were very frustrating misses. I feel like what we've been missing lately, these are the kind of misses we've had where they're just really, really close, narrow misses that they probably should have hit if a couple factors change. For example, Bam Adebayo had 22 points plus rebounds in 22 minutes of play. It's an average of 1 point/rebound for every minute. He plays up to 30, 31 minutes, which is not that crazy. He probably goes ahead and cashes that over. But he only played 22 minutes in the game, so unfortunately that's a miss. Jordan Poole, though, is a really frustrating one because he finished the game with 15 points. He had like 6 points in the first 5 minutes of the game. But he shot 5 for 18 from the floor, 4 for 12 from three-point range. The data was there. The volume of shots were there. The guy just couldn't hit a shot. So what I'm going to go ahead and do here, I'm not going to put him on the season-long do not bet list because the volume is there. He's taking so many shots every single game. It's hard not to bet him. I'm going to put him on a 30-day no bet list. We're not going to touch him for a month. 30-day no bet list for Jordan Poole. We'll revisit him in about 30 days and see if we can give him another shot here. But for 30 days, he's on the no bet list. So we did technically lose last night, guys. We lost 0.55 units. We are now at 111.94 on the season with our single bet category. This is the first time since January 10th in almost 2 weeks where we finished negative units on a video. So we've been on a really good run of late here since we had that really cold week. We've been on a pretty good run. This is the first losing night we had in almost 2 weeks. But overall, in our single bet category, we are on a 19-10 run since January 10th. So we're doing pretty well. 19-10 is not too shabby. Let's go ahead and get back on track here. Again, a little bit of a misfire last night, but I'm feeling really good. We got 6 player props to go ahead and share with you guys. No more time to waste. Let's dive into today's picks. All right, guys, jumping right into the outlier screen here. Our first pick in today's slate comes from the Minnesota Timberwolves Dallas Mavericks game, 7:30 p.m. tip-off. We're going Daniel Gafford here of the Dallas Mavericks under 22.5 points plus rebounds. Now, I'm grabbing this at the sportsbook that's available to me on this list, which is FanDuel at -125. It is available on multiple other sportsbooks for varying odds. As always, guys, make sure to shop around for the best sportsbook odds available. I don't have Caesars, Bet365, or Prize Picks available in my state, so FanDuel is where we're going to rock with here from -125. And the data overall on this prop is absolutely fantastic, minus for the past couple games. Look at the last 10 game data here for Daniel Gafford, an 80% hit rate. 8 of his last 10 games, he's cashed this under, averaging 18.1 points plus rebounds per game over his last 10 games. Overall in 2024, a 71% hit rate on this under. 29 out of 41 games, he's cashed the under, averaging 18.34 points plus rebounds per game overall this season. Whatever way you want to shake it, even the last 20 game data, a 75% hit rate for Gafford. 15 of his last 20 games, he's cashed the under, averaging 17.4 points plus rebounds per game. And of course, the head-to-head data, which is absolutely fantastic. Each of his last 8 meetings with the Minnesota Timberwolves dating back to last season and including the playoffs, a 100% hit rate on the under. He's averaging just 15 points plus rebounds per game against the Timberwolves across their last 8 meetings. They played 2 times this year, October 29th and December 25th, both times he cashed the under, and the last time they played, he didn't register a stat in this category, 0 points and 0 rebounds. Granted, the last time they played on Christmas, he didn't play a ton, but he still played about 13 minutes in that game and recorded no stats in the points and rebounds category. So like I said, the overall data looks fantastic here. So why is this line where it is? Well, it's because the last couple games, he's had a couple of massive performances, including his last time out just 2 days ago against the Hornets. He had a massive game, 31 points and 15 rebounds against the Charlotte Hornets. And a couple days before that against the Pelicans, another massive game, 27 points and 12 rebounds there. So you've seen Daniel Gafford have a couple of really big games. Look at the minutes played here. He's been playing a lot of extra minutes, 30 minutes versus New Orleans, almost 34 minutes versus Charlotte. Now, the reason that is because of all the injuries Dallas currently has. Obviously, we know the injuries to Luka and whatnot, but also with their centers here, Derek Lively, game time decision night with a right ankle sprain. Dwight Powell, out. A lot of guys, either game time decisions are out, but specifically when it comes to centers, the other two centers that they use, primarily Derek Lively and Dwight Powell, there's a really good chance both don't play tonight, which obviously would mean more minutes, more usage, more shots, more everything for Daniel Gafford here. Now, I do think that this number is a little bit skewed here because of the fact that he had this massive game last time out versus Charlotte. I wonder how much of that is how bad Charlotte is versus how good Daniel Gafford is. Granted, with more minutes, with more shots, more everything, his numbers are going to go up naturally. But this is a really tough defensive matchup here. I even with the increased volume of work for Gafford, I don't see him cashing the over in this game. Minnesota this year, top 5 in points allowed, top 10 in rebounds allowed. But if we narrow it down to the center position, they are 8th in points allowed and 4th in rebounds allowed. Not only that, but they are one of the best defensive teams in the NBA in terms of defense in the restricted area. They are top 10 in terms of field goal percentage. They don't really give a lot of shots up. And if you do take shots, you're not making a lot of them in the restricted area against Dallas. That's where the majority of Gafford's points come from. It's in that restricted area. So you've got a really good matchup here against Dallas. You also have the insights provided by Outlier. Daniel Gafford has failed to exceed 22.5 points plus rebounds in 8 straight games versus top 10 defenses for points allowed. Like I said, I understand the volume is higher. He's playing a lot more minutes. He's taking a lot more shots. You see in this data range, there's not a single one where he's played more than 21 minutes. So obviously with the more minutes, the more shots and everything, I understand why the line's where it's at and why people might be hesitant to take this under here. But I think Minnesota is so good defensively, specifically down low. I think even with the elevated line, the elevated minutes, the elevated usage, I still think Gafford will have a hard time hitting this over. So I still like the under here at 22.5 points plus rebounds. All right, guys, our second prop in today's slate comes from Pistons Hawks, 7:30 p.m. tip-off. One of our all reliable guys, one of our cash cows this year, Jalen Duren, over 9.5 points. Now, I will say this line is very much juiced. It's minus 150 over on FanDuel. Now, you could go up to 10.5 points, which now goes down to minus 113 on FanDuel, minus 110 BetMGM. The data is not as good. Personally, I would rather pay for a little extra juice and have a better shot of hitting. Now, of course, he has his last 3 games scored way more than this. 17 points versus Indiana, 15 points versus Phoenix, 16 points versus Houston. But you do see a couple of those Toronto Knicks games where Charlotte, where he just barely got the number to 10 points. I would feel more comfortable taking him at 10 points at minus 150 than to take him, minus 10.5, and now all of a sudden, he scores 10 points, but it's a loss. Like I said, at the end of the day, it's your prerogative on what you do. I'm just here to give you the information, but the data is way better at the 9.5 point line versus the 10.5 point line. Most times, 1 point won't make a difference, but for this player prop in particular, the 1 point does make a pretty big difference here. So 70% hit rate over his last 10 games, averaging 11.3, points per game over his last 10 games. So far in 2024, a 57% hit rate on this over for Jalen Duren, 23 out of 40 games, averaging 10 points per game over his last 40 games. So like I said, pretty good data across the board here for Jalen Duren. Even the last 20 games, 65% hit rate, 13 of his last 20, averaging 11.2 points per game. So he's been on a really good run here for Detroit. We also have the insights provided by Outlier. Now, Jalen Duren has exceeded 10.5 points in 12 of his last 15 games versus bottom 10 defenses for points allowed, averaging 12.9 points per game. That's an 80% hit rate. That's at the 10.5 point line. So again, if you want to go 10.5, you absolutely can. I'm sticking with 9.5 points, even though it is more juiced. It's now an 87% hit rate at this line with 13 of his last 15 games versus bottom 10 defenses for points allowed. And of course, we have the head-to-head data. The last time they played back on April 3rd of last season, he had 11 points in that game, so not a lot to go off of there. Overall, Atlanta this year, they are the 3rd worst defense in the NBA in terms of points allowed to opposing teams. Versus centers in particular, though, they're middle of the road, 16th, giving up 18.4 points per game. Not a great matchup for Dern in terms of the head-to-head versus the centers, versus Capella versus Okongwu. But I'm not too concerned. He had 11 points the last time these two teams met, and he shot 5 for 13 from the floor. So he had a pretty good amount of shots taken. He just didn't shoot the ball all that well. He still cashed the over in that spot. So look at the last 5 games here. The shots that he's taking about 6.6 shots per game, but he's shooting about 85% from the floor. The last 3 games, he's taken at least 8 shots in each of his last 3. I like the matchup here for Jalen Dern overall. I know it's a lot of juice on the line, but I still think it's a pretty good spot for him at over 9.5 points. All right, guys, our third player prop in today's slate comes from the Hornets-Grizzlies game, 8 p.m. tip-off. We're going Miles Bridges of the Charlotte Hornets here over 18.5 points. This is another one of our cash cows this year. We've been betting on Miles Bridges pretty consistently over the last couple weeks, and he really hasn't led us astray. He keeps on cashing for us. So we're going to keep riding the hot hand here. It's minus 110 over on DraftKings, so pretty good value as well. You see 9 of his last 10 games, he's cashed this over. A 90% hit rate, averaging 21.4 points per game this season over his last 10 games, I should say. In the season view, a 62% hit rate on this over. 16 out of 26 games, he's cashed it, averaging 18.58 points per game this season. And even the last 20 game data, 75% hit rate. 15 of his last 20 games, he's cashed the over, averaging 20.15 points per game across his last 20 games. So the data looks pretty solid. Even the head-to-head data, of course, this is all taking place last season, but both times he played Memphis last year, he did cash the over at 100% hit rate, averaging 26 points per game against the Grizzlies last season. And then we also have the insights provided by Outlier. Miles Bridges has exceeded 18.5 points in 4 of his last 5 games versus bottom 10 defenses for points allowed, averaging 23 points per game. That's an 80% hit rate. So across the board here, guys, we've got really solid data on this Miles Bridges over. The Grizzlies overall this year, they are ranked 22nd in points allowed in the NBA to opposing teams. Now, Miles Bridges is listed as a small forward versus small forward this year. Memphis 30th in the NBA, the worst defensive team in the NBA in terms of points allowed to the small forward position. He also plays a little power forward, in which they're ranked 15th in the NBA, giving up 22.3 points per game. Whatever way you want to shake it, I think you've got a pretty good matchup on your hands here. Add that to the fact that Brandon Miller is still out for the Hornets here, which is obviously really big for us. Look at the data here for games without Brandon Miller this year for Miles Bridges. So far this year, a 58% hit rate on this over when Brandon Miller does not play. 7 out of 12 games this year, averaging 19.42 points per game. If we narrow that down to just the last 5 games without Miles Bridges, without Brandon Miller, excuse me, guys. Miles Bridges, I need a damn coffee here. Miles Bridges' last 5 games without Brandon Miller, a 100% hit rate, averaging 22.8 points per game. So across the board there, minus all the tongue twists there and all the fumbling on my end, the data is really solid on this prop. This one is really solid for minus 110 too. Really good value here. Just basically had the brain farts of all time brain farts there on that last pick. Our fourth player prop in today's slate, we're actually going to go ahead and stick with this same game, this Hornets-Grizzlies game, 8 p.m. tip-off. I'm taking a player prop that does concern me because I have not had a lot of luck betting on Jaren Jackson Jr. this season, but I like the spot here. So we're going Jaren Jackson Jr. over 28.5 points plus rebounds against the Hornets. We're getting this one for minus 118 over on BetMGM. And I shouldn't say I haven't had a lot of luck. I mean, I have cashed a couple of Jaren Jackson Jr. props this season, but I feel like the last couple times I bet on him, I've had some pretty bad luck in terms of the way they play him. They pull him late, they pull him early. The minutes played is always kind of strange with how they use him. Despite all that, I'm still going to rock with this prop here because the data is pretty solid. Again, it's all about the matchup. 7 of his last 10 games, he's cashed this over, a 70% hit rate, averaging 33.4 points plus rebounds per game over his last 10 games. Now, the overall season view for Jaren Jackson Jr. is okay/not great. A 49% hit rate on this over this year for Jaren Jackson Jr. 20 out of 41 games, he's cashed the over, averaging 28.98 points plus rebounds per game. You do see lately a lot more green for him over the last 15 games or so, so he's been trending in the right direction. We also have the head-to-head data here. The last time he faced off with the Charlotte Hornets on February 10th of last season, he had 32 points plus rebounds. He finished with 29 points and 3 rebounds in that spot. And overall, defensively, the Hornets, they're 14th in points allowed, 17th in rebounds allowed overall. Versus centers, they're 15th and 17th. So they're ranked mediocre, about average, middle of the road. But seeing what Daniel Gafford just did to them, their last time out just 2 days ago, I might be a square for taking this play prop because I know I'm not the only person out there who's going to think the same way I am. But if Daniel Gafford can do what he just did to this Hornets team, why could Jaren Jackson Jr. not, who is a better overall player than Daniel Gafford here? So I'm rocking with Jaren Jackson Jr. here because I like the spot, the matchup here overall versus a Hornets team. They just traded Nick Richards. They still have Mark Williams. But you got to wonder, post Nick Richards, what does this Hornets center depth look like? What do they look like down low? And like I said, if Daniel Gafford could do what he did the last time out, 31 points on 80% shooting with 15 rebounds. He had 33 rebound chances in that game, by the way. Jaren Jackson Jr. should be able to crush this line. Again, I might be wrong here. That's why it's called gambling. That's why it's called betting. But I do like the spot overall for Jaren Jackson Jr. And the insights provided by Outlier, Jaren Jackson Jr. has exceeded 28.5 points plus rebounds in 5 straight games at home, averaging 34.8 points plus rebounds per game across his last 5 home games. So there is a decent amount of data here suggesting that this is a pretty solid player prop. By the way, guys, shout out to our sponsor of today's video, Outlier. All the data, all the insight, all the information that you're seeing in today's video and all of my NBA player prop videos here on the channel are brought to you by Outlier. It is truly the best sports betting tool on the market. It consolidates all the information, all the data, and all of the insights that you need to make smart sports betting choices. I love it. And I say it all the time, and I'm not joshing you guys here. Even if they weren't a sponsor of the channel, I would still use Outlier because it really is a fantastic sports betting tool. We are running a special promotion. If you look at the pinned comment down below, there is a link inside that pinned comment that gives you a 7-day free trial to check Outlier out for yourself. So all you got to do down low, click that pinned comment that contains all the final plays for today's slate. You click that pinned comment, and the first thing you're going to see at the top of that pinned comment is the link for the 7-day free trial to Outlier. So make sure, guys, you go ahead and check that out. Try it out 7 days free. You don't like it, you cancel it. No cost to you guys at all. But I'm telling you guys, check it out because it's totally worth it. All right, guys, 2 player props left in today's slate. Next up, we got Bucks Pelicans 8 p.m. tip-off. We're going Trey Murphy III of the New Orleans Pelicans over 29.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. We're getting this one for -106 over on FanDuel, although it is available on a lot of sports books for varying odds. The data is decent on this prop as well. You see 7 of his last 10 games, he's cashed the over, a 70% hit rate, averaging 35.1 points plus rebounds plus assists over his last 10 games. Overall in 2024-25, a 50% hit rate on this over. 14 out of 28 games, he's cashed it, averaging 29.46 points plus rebounds plus assists per game. You see a lot more red in the first half of this half season, but of late, you see a lot more green, a lot more consistency over the last 15 games for Trey Murphy III. And the head-to-head data versus Milwaukee, although a very small sample size, the last time they played back on March 28th of last season, he did cash the over narrowly with 15 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists in what was a 7-point win for New Orleans. And the insights provided by Outlier, Trey Murphy III has failed to exceed. All right, guys, I'll be totally honest here. I don't really know what is... Oh, that's the under. That's why. I was going to say, what the hell is going on here? All right, well, the insight's actually not very good. So listen, I'm not going to hide that from you guys. This data point states that Trey Murphy has failed to exceed 29.5 points plus rebounds plus assists in 10 of his last 13 games versus top 10 defenses for assists allowed, a 77% hit rate on the under. So, look, I'm not going to I honestly misread that, but I still like the prop regardless of that insight because of the matchup. Now, overall, Milwaukee 9th in points, 20th in rebounds, and 8th in assists. But versus small forwards, which is where Trey Murphy primarily plays, they are 19th in points allowed, 27th in rebounds allowed, and 15th in assists allowed. So, yeah, the insight that was provided there is not very good in our favor. But overall, the data is pretty promising. He's cashed in 4 of his last 5 games. But look at the minutes played and the volume of work he's had. He's averaging 39.1 minutes per game across his last 5 games, taking on average 16.2 shots per game with 6.4 potential assists, 10.8 rebound chances. The translation, a lot of volume, a lot of opportunity for stats here. In Milwaukee, a lot of injuries on both sides here. Milwaukee, Giannis game time decision, Middleton game time decision. AJ Green is out. Marshawn Beauchamp game time decision, although I don't know how much that will affect this. But on the Pelican side of things, no Ingram, no Herb Jones, which means obviously a lot of minutes here for Trey Murphy. You also have a ton of other game time decisions, DeJounte Murray, Zion, Yves Missy. So you have opportunities for him to get even more volume here, especially with some other guys being out for New Orleans. So yeah, that insight wasn't very great, but I still like the spot overall here and a pretty good value for Trey Murphy III. All right, guys, and our 6th and final prop in today's slate comes from the Warriors-Kings game. 10 p.m. tip-off here. We're going Domantas Sabonis of the Sacramento Kings over 33.5 points plus rebounds. We're getting this one from -110 over on BetMGM, as always available on multiple sports books for varying odds. Data is solid on this one as well, guys. 7 of his last 10 games, he's cashed the over. A 70% hit rate, averaging 36.7 points plus rebounds per game across his last 10 games. Overall in 2024, a 59% hit rate on this over. 23 out of 39 games, he's cashed it, averaging 34.97 points plus rebounds per game this season. And even his last 20 games, a 65% hit rate on this over. 13 of his last 20 games, averaging 36.3 points plus rebounds per game across his last 20 games. And the insights provided by Outlier, and I promise this one is actually a good insight here. Domantas Sabonis has exceeded 33.5 points plus rebounds in 8 straight games versus bottom 10 defenses for rebounds allowed, averaging a whopping 40.1 points plus rebounds per game average across his last 8 games versus bottom 10 rebounding teams. So pretty good data in the head-to-head category here. You see 3 of his last 6 meetings with the Golden State Warriors. He's cashed the over. It's a 50% hit rate, averaging 29.5 points plus rebounds per game across their last 6 meetings. He's played them one time this year back on January 5th, a few weeks ago. He had 22 points and 13 rebounds in what was a 30-point blowout for Sacramento. Let's focus in on that game there, the one data point from this season, which he did cash the over in that game. It was a narrow cash, but a cash nonetheless. He had 20 rebound chances in that game. He finished with 13 rebounds, so he had even more opportunities for rebounds. He shot 10 for 13 from the floor, so 77%. He played about 30 minutes in that game, but look at the last 6 meetings. He's averaging about 35 minutes per game across the last 6 meetings. Even go to the more recent, the last 5 games, which does, by the way, have an 80% hit rate. He's averaging 36.5 minutes per game across his last 5 games. So he's typically playing even more minutes than what he played the last time he played Golden State. He only needed about 30 minutes to cash it, but typically speaking, he plays closer to 35 minutes per game. So that extra 5 minutes, if he does play longer, only helps our case here. And again, there were more opportunities in that game for more rebounds as well. He finished with 13, but there were 20 rebound chances in that spot. In the matchup versus centers, again, you look at right here, Golden State, 24th overall in rebounds allowed versus centers. They're 19th and 8th in points allowed. I don't buy this totally too much. The Warriors have statistically usually struggled with centers in these spots. The big guys like Sabonis, like your Jokic's, they typically go off when they play Golden State here. So I'm again, it's not great data from that standpoint, but I like the spot for Sabonis overall. I'm going to go ahead and rock with his over here. All right, guys, a little bit of a longer video here. All 6 picks in today's NBA slate. There they all are. We'll go a quick little recap here. We have Miles Bridges of the Charlotte Hornets, over 18.5 points. Jaren Jackson Jr. of the Memphis Grizzlies, over 28.5 points plus rebounds. Domantas Sabonis of the Sacramento Kings, over 33.5 points plus rebounds. Jalen Duren of the Detroit Pistons, over 9.5 points. Trey Murphy III of the New Orleans Pelicans, over 29.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. And Daniel Gafford of the Dallas Mavericks, under 22.5 points plus rebounds. Again, these are all single bets. You could parlay them if you want to parlay them, but they are meant to be single bets in today's slate. Guys, that is it for me today. Thank you very much, as always, for watching one more time. Please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. I'll be back tomorrow with another NBA player prop video. But until then, guys, I hope you're all winners. Enjoy your hump day. Let's go ahead and make a dangerously good cash today. I can't end the video on that. That was awful. Trying to fit dangerous in there. Terrible. Guys, hope you're all winners. See you back here tomorrow. Let's go ahead and make some money.